Hey everybody, I'm Paul from Forge the Narrative. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already to this channel as we run down these releases leading up to the release of Warhammer 40k 8th edition. Today we got a pretty big news article in the form of the preview of what a data slate looks like. Right off the bat we can see that there's no points listed on this thing. I think that's going to lead us into a General's Handbook style release to where they can tweak things, tweak the balance of the game, make things more competitive, make the game more competitive and balanced for everyone with the General's Handbook style release like we're seeing for Age of Sigmar, and not changing the rules for the actual units themselves. So people can still play with things that they're comfortable with and rules that they learn, but maybe the place in a competitive list, how it all slots together, and efficiency changes based on those annual updates we get going forward. But we do see the power level, and I think that's going to be a way for them to bring some kind of balance and reason to non-competitive, I should say non-competitive, less formalized, more narrative styles of play, which, you know, maybe it's something like, and they'll talk about it more tomorrow, but maybe it'd be something like, we're going to play this battle to where the antagonist had 97 power and the protagonist had 37 power, and this is the story, and this is what happens with that. You know, lopsided battles based on just the power level, and that's okay. It's not based down to just points. So there's a lot going on in here. What we've seen from this, and I won't talk about too much the strategy of what a Rubric Marine is, but they're cool though. I'll tell you, they got this novel rule here that says that they add 1 to their save if they're being fired at with a weapon that only does 1 damage. I mean, we'll leave that for further analysis on the podcast and the weekly recap for these type of things. But I will talk about how they've been willing to push the rules for even things that we had commonly accepted before. Smite, for instance, Smite works differently for an aspiring champion of chaos from the Rubric Marines than it does for the base librarian that we said was going to be, or that they told us was going to be available to all psychers. So that leads me to believe that maybe Magnus's Smite could even be more powerful. Tigerius' Smite, Mephiston's Smite could be more powerful or different than even a Blood Angel Librarian, or you know, maybe an Eldar Farseer or Warlock or something. You know, we don't know, but what they've showed us that they're willing to play with those base concepts, because the complete rules for this unit are listed on the data slate. Outside of what maybe keywords do, or this rule of the death to the false emperor, which I have to imagine is going to be like an overall chaos thing. So you'll have your chaos faction, then you'll have your Rubric Marines, or you know, whatever you have from there on. But everything that you're going to need to play your unit is going to be on these slim profile things, maybe 1 battle tome that has just everything in it, or at the release of, you know, a printout, a pamphlet, 2 or 3 pages instead of these just volumes of tomes that we had to lug around right now. I mean, I know in 7th edition it wasn't uncommon to be playing with 4 and 5 hardback codexes at the table, you know, or you know, needing to get a giant iPad to carry all your books around on just because you want to be informed. This is going to be a very, very refreshing change. Extremely refreshing. We got to see some stuff about force axes, force weapons. Now, force, if you look at the abilities, and I'll post the link to the article in the description here, but if you look at the abilities, we don't have a force characteristic, and this is surprising to me because I thought for sure that we were going to have something that gave force, you know, whether it be a guaranteed mortal wound or extra mortal wounds or something. But instead what we've got, if they've played around with the pluses and minuses to AP, we got plus to strength on weapons a little bit differently, and minuses to AP a little bit differently. For instance, the axe is now -2 to AP and +1 to strength, where the power sword is base strength of the user, but a -3 to AP. And instead of something like the instant death mechanic for these force weapons, now I would have to imagine there's probably going to be something similar across the board, unless someone has a special, you know, uber force thing or whatever, is that they do D3 wounds. The stave here is actually a pretty good takeaway. You know, the force stave is +2 strength. It's like a -1 save and D3 wounds. You know, that's kind of a bump to these things before, whereas they, you know, were AP4, which didn't do a whole lot in 7th edition. You know, if you had a staff, you just were just hoping and praying to get a wound through. You know, maybe you took a force field generator with a stave because it didn't matter. You know, whatever. I don't know. Anyway, the staff is got an increase in efficiency or effectiveness, and I think that this spells well for, we can kind of assume how this will apply to Grey Knights, where a lot of them have force weapons. It's going to be some instant power increases to some armies, but you maybe do want to do some weapon swaps pretty soon. So to sum up the data slate, I'm impressed. There's a lot of information here telling us how to take a base unit, how to increase the size of the unit, and then how to use this in non matched play formats, but 99% of the rules are all right here, and they packed a lot in. They've given us all the weapon options possible, and so we're not having to be flipping pages. Even if we know what a weapon does, it's still here for us to reference. Thanks, guys.